Good morning, church. Good morning, everybody. I'm Lucas Bowling. I am the student pastor here at North Liberty Christian Church, and I've gotten to meet a lot of you within the past 6 months, and I have yet to meet some of you, which I'm really excited to do. Today, we are going to be introducing some of our guests, which I'm not going to say their name just yet because they will do that themselves. But today, we're going to be talking about Michiana Christian Camp, and I'm sure a lot of you know what the camp is. You've been there, you've experienced it. Maybe you haven't, but we're going to be talking about the mission of that, and I would say personally that I wouldn't be here in this position that I'm in now without the connections and the relationships that I have through the camp and the experience that I've gained through the camp and the amount of people that have supported me through the camp. And so this is something that I'm extremely passionate about, and we've been connected with the camp as a church here for as long as I've known, and I'd love to get started. So I'm going to welcome the guest, and I'm going to ask you guys a couple of questions. So going down the line, we'll start here with, we don't know his name yet, and so I'm going to ask you, what is your name? How many years have you been involved with the camp? And if you could eat one camp meal for the rest of your life, what would it be and why?
All right, my name's Josh. I'm the director at Michiana Christian Camp. I have been there now for almost 3 years, not quite. We're coming up on that in March. Meal. I struggle with that. There's a lot of good meals, but I think just being the Midwestern boy that I am, probably biscuits and gravy.
Biscuits and gravy.
Biscuits and
Nice,
gravy.
nice. All right, you, sir. The mic should be on. Yeah.
My name is Matt and Matthew Janaszewski, and I have been going to the camp for about 12 years. But my whole life I've been there. Just if I could eat one meal at the camp for the rest of my life, it would probably be MCC bowls.
For those that don't know, what's an MCC bowl?
It is popcorn chicken, corn, gravy, and mashed potatoes.
Oh, the entire food pyramid. I love it.
I'm Adriana Pride. I've been going to the camp for probably the same, 12, 14 years, somewhere in there, first chance camp. And my favorite camp meal is also MCC bowls.
Nice.
I'm Jess Peterson. I have been going to the camp as a camper from second grade to senior year, so about 12 years, and this is my 5th year that I'll be a faculty for the camp. And if I had to choose one camp meal, it would actually be one day, and it would be baked oatmeal for breakfast. If you don't know, you should. And I would do haystacks for dinner. That's what I would.
Nice. Do you want to give a description of what haystacks are?
You can have haystacks a variety of ways. My favorite is chips on the bottom. So you have Doritos, specifically, and then you'll have your rice, your meat, all of your good veggies smothered in nacho cheese and salsa.
So you know when you go to Michiana Christian Camp, or if you send your students there, they will have some sort of food, regardless of the nutritional value. So keep it going. I love Michiana Christian Camp, and I've been going to Michiana Christian Camp since First Chance Camp, and I'm 24 years old now, so it's probably 19 years I've been involved with the camp, and so that's something that I'm really proud to say because of how many lives it's impacted, how it's impacted my life, and how my relationship with God has grown through the camp and the relationships and the amount of time that I've spent there. So the camp's mission is this. This is what the camp says the mission is. So the mission of the camp is to make Christ known by cultivating an environment where memorable experiences lead to real relationships and result in eternal impact. All right, and the vision of the camp is that Michiana Christian Camp is a place of refuge, a place where people discover, grow, and experience God's transforming power. So a couple more questions for you guys, and feel free to talk as much as you want about it because we've got the time up here, and I'd love to get some first-person points of view of people that have been involved with the camp, whether it's been 3 years or 12 years. I'd love to hear from you guys. So what are some of your favorite memories of camp? And you can start wherever. We'll go down the line, or whoever wants to pick it up. You go for it.
All right, I'm going to go first. So my favorite memory of camp, it's really hard. I've been there a long time. What I probably remember most as a student is the faculty hunts. So if you don't know, this is faculty's opportunity to kind of get away from the campers a little bit and go play a giant game of hide and seek at the camp. And so the students all week, they get the opportunity to learn their faculty, see who they are, learn their names even, and then about Wednesday or Thursday, some of those faculty, not all of them, there is supervision, they go and they hide at the camp, and it's the camper's job to then go and seek out these faculty for either points or prizes. And so I always remembered growing up at the camp and being like, I cannot wait to be faculty and get to hide in my hiding spot that I have specifically chosen. I have yet to do it. I'm hoping this summer is the opportunity for that to happen, but I remember faculty hunts at the most.
One of my favorite memories is actually at family camp, which is a weekend of camp during Memorial or Labor Day weekend, where a bunch of families come together and just have a good time for the weekend. I stayed up pretty late, I'm not going to say how late, with a bunch of my friends, and we played a lot of card games, and we just messed around for pretty much the entire time, and it was great.
So, I'm going to pick on Adriana a little bit. You know where this is going. It also involves a faculty hunt, and I was still fairly new. But being the director, any of those emergency phone calls or radio calls come my way, and so I still didn't know very many people. But I get this call over the radio that, hey, somebody fell out of a tree. And in my mind, I'm like, okay, were they trying to jump? What happened here? So I roll over on my golf cart, and I find Adriana on the ground, surrounded by a bunch of people. And she was hiding in a tree in the faculty hunt. And it's something that I will never let her live down. And I'm glad that I could be at her home church to point that out.
And I will say, I think Adriana jumped out of the tree. I don't think she fell. I think Adriana jumped. So.
Did jump. I was scared, so I jumped. Tried to make it to the next tree. I'm not Tarzan.
Adriana, do you have any favorite memories of camp other than falling out of the tree?
I feel like my memory from the camp just got shared.
You're welcome.
But I don't know. There's a lot of memories. I feel like one of my main memories is when I was junior faculty during a junior high 1 week, and it was the night of my sister's birthday, and I wanted to make her chocolate chip cookies, and so I think Matt was there, a whole bunch of other people. We also stayed up way too late, sorry Eric, but we made a whole bunch of cookies and made a huge mess in the kitchen, and then cleaned that up, and then went and played volleyball until like way too early in the morning, and then got up that next morning and went and got Big B coffee.
That's awesome.
That's probably my favorite.
Yeah. So these are all memorable experiences, and all of these things lead to real relationships, which is what the mission of the camp is about. Like, we can all explain or even think of one person or one relationship, and I'm sure there's tens of them that you can think of people that you've met at the camp or people that have poured into you at the camp, and these experiences that you have at camp. These are just one of probably hundreds of memories that you have there. One of my memories is, to go into it, is I was at one of the junior high weeks of camp, and I was just faculty. But even as faculty members, we learn things alongside the students. And as adults, we always want to learn, and especially when you're being taught like you're back in school, it's a little bit easier to learn. So one of the things that I always remember about camp is we were sitting on the hill by the carpet ball and the basketball court, and my friend Scott Crary was talking to the students, and he said something along the lines of like, why are you continuing to search for something when what you need has always been there? Talking about God and the relationship with God, and how humans constantly feel the need to find something new or find the next new thing, or especially as junior hires, they want to continue to find either the next social pressure or the next relatable thing or the next big thing that's viral or whatever. But talking to them, that relates to just everyone's life. Why do we consistently need to search for something new when what we need has always been there? And that's Jesus' love and God's love in his relationship with us. So those are things that lead to eternal impact, and these things are super important to build memories and build relationships with others. So on a little bit lighter note, so what do you think of when you think of your favorite camp tradition, if that makes sense? Do you have a favorite camp tradition? I think of meal times, but I'll let you guys go. Yeah.
This is going to be kind of weird, but during one of the last weeks of camp, one of the last junior high weeks of camp, Thursday night is known as a, what's it called? Prank night.
Prank night.
I didn't hear that.
When I think of like traditions, just because I've been involved with that week for so long, that's kind of what I think of as the prank night at junior high 1, because I've heard stories of way before even my time of that.
Yeah.
For me, it's a cook's parade. Like when you're like eating dinner and everything, you want to show your appreciation. So the whole room starts chanting, "We want a cook's parade," and then all the cooks in the kitchen come out banging like pots and stuff, and it's just a great time.
Awesome.
Mine would have to be the pool party. If you guys don't know, the camp has a giant pool. It's up by the cabins. And so usually on Wednesday night, that's usually the pool party unless the weather's bad. But the summer staff puts on a pool party for everybody to come and enjoy. And there's food and there's games. And just seeing the kids try and attempt these games is always really fun to see. We've seen jousting in the pool with pool noodles. We've seen Hungry Hungry Hippos played. So probably the pool party has to be my favorite camp tradition.
Awesome.
So I'm going to take a little bit of a different twist on that. And we're all talking summer camp. I'm going to talk about family camp. Family camp is something that, even though we've only been there for a few years, you get to know people, and they talk about just generations that come. I mean, they've been doing this for 20, 30 years. They're bringing their kids who are bringing their kids, and they continue to come back every Memorial Day, every Labor Day, and like who is where. They have their spot. And if they don't get their spot, that could be a problem. It has been, even being here for those 3 years, it's been good to see just how much of a family feel that is. How much people have invested in the camp, and the camp that has poured into them as well. And so they continue to come back. And we see it through summer camp, but it's so evident with family camp because you see families that you don't always see at summer camp.
Yeah.
I love that tradition.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure everybody here at North Liberty can relate to this, but having a community is so important, and seeing how intertwined our community is here at North Liberty is so amazing, and it's been so beneficial to see it to grow, because that's how a family grows, is being connected and building these relationships. And I think the camp is just another way that we can see God's community growing and seeing us all come together for the same reason, and to love God and to love others. And I think it's so awesome to see different relationships form over generations and over decades. It's really impactful to see how much you can be stronger together as a community and stronger together with these real relationships that are built there. So I want to share a verse with you guys, a couple verses from Ecclesiastes. It's Ecclesiastes chapter 4, verse 9 through 12. And it kind of gives you insight onto this idea of having these relationships. So it says, 2 are better than 1, because they have a good return for their labor. If either of them falls down, one can help the other up. But pity anyone who falls and has no one to help them up. Also, if 2 lie down together, they will keep warm. But how can one keep warm alone? Though one may be overpowered, 2 can defend themselves. A cord of 3 strands is not quickly broken. And so I think that part of the mission of Michiana Christian Camp is so important to build these relationships, so that way a strand of 3 or a cord of 3 is not quickly broken. So that way when we are down or we face these hardships, we can come together and have these relationships to rely on. And these memories and experiences, like I said, lead to real relationships. So what are some of the relationships you have built at the camp? What are some of these things that come to mind when I say that?
Yeah, for a long time, the camp was how I built all of my friendships. So I didn't grow up in the church, and so the camp was a very special place to me because it allowed me the opportunity to be with other people who believed in Jesus. And so my very first camp friend and the person that I met on the very first day of camp was Allison Nichols, who is now Stout. She's somewhere here, but she was my very first person that I met at the camp, and we grew up together. We went through high school together. We're still in communication together, and I think to my time working as summer staff. So Adriana and I didn't know each other super well. We knew of each other. She was my camper. Even Matt was my camper, and so for a long time I didn't really know Adriana. And summer 2023, when I went and I was a part of summer staff, we were on program together, and that relationship really flourished. And then I met Lucas at the camp. We knew each other from we knew each other from high school. We really didn't talk, but we had friends that were in the same group. And then ultimately being back at the camp and serving together is what led us to be together. And so the camp has made absolutely real relationships for me, and they've lasted a lifetime. And I know I'll continue to build those relationships as I continue to grow.
If my students are listening, don't date yet. You're not old enough to date. Just giving a heads up.
Yeah, I feel like for me, I love the relationships that you build at camp, even though it's like just a week or a few days that you're there. The one relationship that I can think of is me and Jess. We didn't really know each other. I remember sitting, I think it was at a high school week, and I just went and listened to her testimony. And I just kind of stuck with that, and then that next summer we ended up sharing a room together as summer staff together, and we have been friends ever since. And then that's really grown into something that is amazing.
Yeah, no, that's pretty dope. I don't have as many relationships as the others because I'm not as old as the other people that are up here with me.
Whoa.
Whoa, whoa, who said that? But one relationship for me that comes to mind is I was always close with Lucas. He's like a brother to me. But I never really got as close until serving with him and being his camper. Because the difference between being someone's camper and then serving with them helps you get to know them and grow with them so much more than just baseline stuff. Including my buddy Liam Wheaton over there. We met in like 1 week and just became like best friends, just like that. And we served, and it's incredible what working with somebody and having fun with somebody can just do. And those are my examples. Not as cool, but yeah.
I've got a couple. On staff, you tend to form different types of relationships because you're not always in front of the kids. I mean, there are some that you get to know, but the one thing for staff, I would say, and I would say this is probably true of all of us, is that we get to know our summer staffers on probably a more intimate level, just because it's like we're working next to each other, day in and day out and grinding it out. But we love Jesus, and that's what keeps us going on Cleaning Fridays. So for me, I think the first summer was a little different coming into things because you were just kind of getting used to it. And they were staff, and you didn't really keep up with them. But over the last couple of summers, there's just that realization, even at a conference that we go to, and talking about that, is it's like summer staff is just as important as our campers. It's just as important they become family to us. Reaching out and touching base with them touching base with us, not just during the summer, but beyond that. And that is something that I love and cherish and be able to do because it's like your family just continues to expand. The other one I was going to talk about is it's a little different. It's not somebody that I've really kept up a relationship with, but it really kind of speaks to the heart of what the camp is and who the camp is. We had a camper last year, and her name was Lydia, and she was having some troubles at camp. She was having a hard time. I mean, there were some inner things that she was having to deal with that we were able to sit and walk her through. And there were times where she would have to go off by herself and just be and calm down and just being able to sit around her and give her what she needed in that time was good. And there was an instance, and if you're ever in my office, you can see this, but there was one time where she was sitting outside just trying to gather her thoughts, and I remember sitting and talking to her, and I said, hey, I know that you love to draw. You've been doing it all week. I would love if you could draw me a picture so I can have it. Didn't think anything of it. Honestly, didn't think she was going to do it. But I still have that picture hanging in my office. And it's the realization that we don't always get to see the full story. We don't always get to see how Jesus works in their lives going forward. They might come back, another year. They might come back for consecutive years, and we might be able to see that. But just being able to be there and be for her and love on her like Jesus does. That's why we do what we do. That's why camp exists. And so I may never talk to her again. But knowing that, God put us in the positions that we're in to do something like that, to plant that little seed, that's worth that small little relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think camp is really good about that. Even Matt said sometimes you'll see them for just a week. You just meet somebody in just a week, and then you become best friends with them. And planting that seed there, and even as their leader or as their student, if you can just plant the seed there and continue to try to cultivate that, it'll grow. And the people around them, that's why community is so important. But also to play into what Matt was talking about, in just that week you became best friends with Liam. That kind of, I love to give my students this thought about, when you're at camp, people talk about this camp high, but it's not just because you're at camp and experiencing these things, but it's because you're in the Word daily, you're praying with others, you're in a godly community and you're focused on God completely. Like you're away from the everyday world, and that's kind of what the thing that we try to incorporate to the students, these things that we teach you to read your Bible, to devote daily, to engage missionally, to serve others, to be in a community that loves Jesus. Like, it's not just something that lasts for a week if you continue to take it out. Go into the world and bring these things to the world so everybody else can feel what it feels like to be at camp. Everybody else can see what it's like to worship at camp if you bring the energy. And that's one of the other things I love about camp is the worship, just because like there's so much energy in a small room in the dining hall. It's just so loud, everything reverberates, and it's just like you feel that amount of pressure. And we always love to encourage the students to go out into the world and bring that to them. So these relationships are different, and because of our focus on God, and because of the relationships that we build there and we continue to pour into there. And these next generations, as somebody that's been faculty and somebody who has been a student, pouring into the next generation is so important. And I want to share a verse from Psalm 78, verse 4 through 7. It's, "We will not hide them from their descendants. We will tell the next generation the praiseworthy deeds of the Lord, his power and the wonders he has done. He decreed statutes for Jacob and established the law in Israel, which he commanded our ancestors to teach to their children, so the next generation would know them, even the children yet to be born, and they in turn would tell their children. Then they would put their trust in God and would not forget his deeds, but would keep his commands." Jess, this is a little bit off of this, but would you be willing to share how your grandfather was, or great-grandfather? You're better at, you probably know where I'm going. You know what I'm talking about. You go for it.
Yeah, so the camp we have what we call supporting churches, people that originally went out, looked at the land of the camp, and thought that this was something that needed to be done for the next generation. And so my great-grandpa, along with many other people's great-grandpas and grandmothers, looked at pieces of land around Niles and ultimately came to the land that was a part of the camp. And my great-grandpa mortgaged his house twice in order to help pay for the land of the camp and to continue to develop it as much as it could. And so the camp has always been a part of my family, and I would not have the camp if it wasn't for my grandparents' investment into me and sending me to that camp, and just recognizing the value of the next generation of people coming forward. And so that was something that my great-grandpa saw value in, my grandpa saw value in. Before he passed, he actually made sure that was his final gift to me, was he made sure that I would be able to go from camp all the way from the time of his passing all the way to when I was a senior in high school. So that was his investment into my future, and I'm so glad that he made that investment.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I think it just tells into the story of investing in the generation, so that way we will know who God is, and so that way the students will know who God is. So they can share that with people. And that's one of our missions in the camp as well, is to develop leaders and not just students. We want to develop leaders so that way they're able to go and teach others about Jesus and teach others about God and be that light in the darkness that the world is. So this eternal impact, going back to the mission of the camp, creating these real relationships, these lasting things, to create and impact the eternal life. In what way has the camp impacted your faith journey? If you'd like to share a bit of your testimony that maybe the camp has poured into, or even small snippets of how it's impacted you, I'd love to hear it.
So for me, I always went to church. I was always a church kid, Sunday school, all of that. And I went through probably the worst year of my life in 2022. And it wasn't until the summer after, when I went to camp, and I went to high school week 2, where I really felt closer with God. And it wasn't just because of what I was doing, it was more because of what he was doing and the people that were around me who knew what they were doing. Mm-hmm. And they trusted in him, they did. And for example, a faculty member of mine, Josiah LeBlanc, I wasn't even in a small group that year, but he would like talk to me and like reach out to me, and he didn't have to, because he knew what I was going through, but he didn't have to do that. He took time out of his day to come and talk to me about it, and it was great. Like, those little things are what really, for me, helped me realize that this is great. This is where I want to be. I want to get closer to him so that I can do this for someone else. And it's great. And then another example which helped, which was actually this year, because, you know, stuff doesn't usually go away. It lingers. I was talking to someone I look up to. I'm not going to name them by name, but I was telling them, because, like, everybody on my father's side is, like, dead. Everybody I ever knew. And he was telling me, he's like, no, that's not true. You're here. Your siblings are here. You guys are still a part of your father. His whole side isn't dead, because you guys are here. You guys are living on, like, not, you know, with him, but, like, for him. We're part of him. And it was just a great reminder, because no one ever said that. And it's just like, he's right. And hearing someone you look up to and who loves Jesus say that when they didn't need to, but they felt like they had to, or didn't feel like they had to, but like, it really has impacted me. And that's why I want to serve at the camp more and more. Yeah.
Thank you, man.
Yeah, so I shared a little bit that the reason I got involved at the camp was because of my grandparents, but one of the other cool things, kind of the trail, you were like 5 people away from knowing everybody in the world. I had no clue about baptism or the importance of dedicating your life to Jesus until I went to a junior high 2-week. Jody and Ben Webb were leading it, and I remember so clearly on Thursday, I was listening to Ben, and Ben was like, yeah, if you want to give your life to Jesus, you should think about baptism. And I was like, I have no clue what baptism is. It sounds a little bit weird, a little bit strange, but I remember taking that from the summer and going home and talking to my pastor about what baptism would mean. And through different circumstances, I wound up not getting baptized at that church, but the next year I still had it on my heart, and I went and I talked to the high school week, which just so happened to be labeled Tribes, which, if you don't know, our student ministry here, we have tribes, and they break out, and the importance of what tribes are. And that summer I was baptized, and so last year I celebrated 10 years of being baptized and was able to be there at the camp, and it's one of those things that I'll never forget, all the people that have poured into me and the night lessons that were shared. Yeah.
I feel like for me, it's just camp has always been special for me. My parents have been involved in the camp. My dad was a staff like 20-something years ago. And so I've always been involved with the camp. And I just know if I don't have anybody here, like many friends in high school or junior high, because I always knew I had my camp people to go back to, my camp people to kind of lean on. And so that's kind of like the relationship or lasting impacts that have
Yeah.
me.
I think the way I look at this is, I mean, it's a part of our faith journey. I mean, for us, you know, we're not from this area. You know, we were from the Kansas City area, so I'll take what normally is 20 minutes and shrink it down to like 1 or 2. You know, we felt a calling in our lives, and, you know, we thought we were going to end up in, you know, a foreign country. We thought we were going to be missionaries, and God did not have that plan for us. He had a plan for us to be here. And it took 8 years for God to, what we can now look back on and say was Him training us and Him, you know, putting us through different situations that really has prepared us to be here. Yeah. And so the camp is very much a part of our faith journey. And it continues to impact that, and we will continue to see that, I think, as we move along. But for us, it's a different feel.
Yeah.
You know, we're impacted every summer, yes. I mean, through the relationships with kids and summer staff, but this was our big step in faith.
Mm-hmm.
This was one of those things that, you know, we're moving away from our family. You know, we're moving away from everybody that we know because this is what God called us to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, it's a journey. Like, it's not just one thing that happens in your life, and that's what it is, right? Our faith is a journey, and this is something that it's a stepping stone along the way, really. And I think back into just my time of being junior faculty and being faculty. I started being junior faculty at the 5th and 6th grade camp when I was like 14 years old. So I had like a stepping stone into student ministry, which later on down the line, here I am in student ministry. Like, these are just ways that God uses things and relationships such as the camp in our lives to be able to prepare us for things that he has in store for us in the future. On another note, like with the internal impact or even impact on our lives, what is something like a verse, a lesson, a visualization, or just a quote from somebody at the camp that you've learned at the camp that you'll carry into your everyday life?
For me, it's something Eric Christian has always kind of said to me, and it's worship, acknowledging all he is with all I am, and kind of just when you're in worship, whatever shape or form you worship in, just giving all that you are to him. And that's always kind of stuck with me, and it's permanently in my mind now.
Yeah.
A more physical demonstration was something that happened last summer. We took a cow tongue, real life cow tongue, by the way. If you've never seen one, it's pretty gross. It's also like that long. And what we did was we got 2 tarps together and we went up to the volleyball court, and what we started doing was trying to get the cow tongue over the volleyball net to the other side. Yes, it dropped on the sand and it got dirty, and we put water to clean it off, and then we would put it back, and sometimes students would get hit with it, but this cow tongue represented the sin that was in our life. It's gross, it's messy, it's complicated, but what lasted with this was as the students and the faculty were trying to get the cow tongue over the net, we got much better at it. And that's something that Eric brought up when he was going through this demonstration, was that as we sin, we get better at it, and we adjust, and we figure out new ways to sin. But we're not called to stay there, and we're not called to be there. So that's how we started our morning out, and we walked with the students throughout the entire day with what sin was and how it's messy and who that person is, Jesus, that comes and saves us from our sin. And yeah, that demonstration has stuck with me throughout the last year, for sure.
I was going to use that, but that is a really good one. For me, I also have one from this summer. D2, I was camper. Wally had like a bunch of buckets for each team, and there were holes in them. And our goal was you had to fill up the entire bucket with water, but there were holes everywhere. And he gave us some earplugs and some paper. And the issue with that is you had to fill it to an extent, and then you had to get water from another bucket with a little cup, or some people started using their shoes and other things. And you just couldn't do it. You couldn't do it with the earplugs, you couldn't do it with paper, because it was like you can't use it with what you have, with what you know. You can't fix all your problems yourself. Even though I grabbed the trash bag from the kitchen and just put it in the bucket and ruined the whole game for him. But it was I loved how he went about it, because it's right. Because then afterwards he gave us some other things to block up the holes, and it worked. Because you need God's help to fill those holes. Nothing on earth will fill the holes that you need.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
For me, I think it is just, I don't know that I can lean on one thing.
Yeah.
I think that the relationships that we form are so important. Because we can sit here at church, and we can sit here on a Sunday morning. and we can leave church and not think a thing about it. It isn't, you have to be intentional about the relationships that you form. And I know a lot of you are part of small groups, and that's where you find your lifeblood a lot of the time. And the camp is interesting because we are one big, nope, okay, there's, I think. We have a lot of different churches that are involved with us, and there are a lot of different relationships that we form. And life can be messy. Life gets messy, relationships get messy, but God has called us to be in that mess and to dwell with him in that mess and to dwell with each other in that mess. And so for me, it's always going to be leaning on, those relationships every day.
Yeah.
We don't just set them aside, when we're done at church on Sunday. We don't just set it aside when we're done with camp at the end of the summer. We continue those on because that's who we are and what we're about.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. So I'm going to give another verse. It's 1 Timothy 4:12, and it says this: "Don't let anyone look down on you because you are young, but set an example for the believers in speech, in conduct, in love, in faith, and in purity." And so, as young people, including you, Josh, it's important to set an example for those around us, especially believers, because we are the next generation, the students are the next generation, you are the next generation. And the camp assists with this in a ton of ways because it enables students to be leaders, it enables them to learn more about God in practical ways, to where it's fun. Camp is fun. Learning about Jesus is fun. Jesus is awesome. He literally makes life better. And so, the camp has just made such an impact there. And so sometimes there are students or parents that are a little hesitant on attending camp or sending their students to camp. So I've got a couple questions on that, and then we'll start to wrap things up. So if someone were on the fence, a parent or a student, quickly, what is something you would say to them? What's something that you would say to them, or any advice you'd give them?
I'll start off on this one.
Yeah, go for it.
I think I would start off and say that Christians aren't perfect. And that's something that a lot of kids or a lot of people that I talk to and deal with that aren't Christians, it's like that's the one thing that scares people away is it's like, well, I can't live up to that. I don't live up to that. And for a camper or a parent, there has to be that realization even coming to camp. You don't have to be perfect to come to camp. We just want you to come.
Yeah.
We want you to come and experience what God is doing through the camp, but also what God can do in your life and live amongst broken people. So that is what I would absolutely love to say. It's like I don't care, where you're at in life. I don't care who you are. I just want you to come and take some time and be with God.
Yeah, absolutely.
And to add on that, for anyone who's a first-time camper or a parent considering, pack extra socks. Genuinely, you will go through them like you never knew. And for me, the camp, you got nothing to lose. This is going to be an experience that you're going to remember for the rest of your life. Even if you're not a Christian, come have fun. The food's good, the time is good, the people are good. You won't get treated differently just because you don't believe the same thing. But you're not going to regret it. It's going to be a good time, and you're going to learn.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I feel like for me, I just say, come to camp. Because, and I have a reason, but I was able this past summer to witness one of the students here. He came to camp, had a family situation happen, ended up leaving camp, and then came back for another week of camp and was able to be poured into and prayed over and everything. And then I got the pleasure of baptizing him at the end of that week of camp. So even if you're going through hard times and you have to leave camp, there's always other options and always people there to pour into you and who you are as a person.
Awesome.
I think as a first-time camper, it's really your safe space. It's your spot to question. It's your spot to worship freely. It's your first time sometimes away from your parents, and it's the opportunity for you to be yourself. It's the opportunity for you to talk to people that are your age, meet new people, and experience it. And if you're a parent who is worried about sending your kid to camp, your kids are in such good hands. We have such stacked teams that come out, and we sometimes have 40, 45 faculty members that are there to specifically pour into your children. And so the camp has always been one of the safest places that I can think of. And so if you're a parent and you're worried about safety, we also have a nurse every single week of camp, so you are taken care of there. And yeah, the socks one is definitely a good one. Bring extra shoes, water shoes.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you, guys. So I want to give you one more verse, and then I want to encourage you guys to stay involved in the ministry, whether it be with your time, whether it be with your students, getting them involved. This camp is super impactful, and it's made a difference in a majority of the people's lives here. And I'd love to continue to pour into it, and I encourage you guys, if you're not involved in something, this is something to be involved in. They've got the fall festival, they've got the spring, they've had the launch to go and celebrate and bring your kids out. First chance camp for students that are like first grade, so that way they can go do a day camp. There's any kind of situation, and you're more than welcome to volunteer and get involved as faculty or be there with the students. So I just encourage you guys to stay involved. So I'll give you one more verse and then we'll wrap it up. So Proverbs 22 verse 6. Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. So as we close, I'll pray for us, but there is going to be a booth out there for Michiana Christian Camp. If you want to get any more information or even just talk with Josh or I or any of the people that are involved out there, I encourage you to do that and hang around. So let me pray for us. God, we thank you for this time today to be able to gather and to be able to learn more about the ministries that you have in store. God, we praise you and we worship you with all that we are and all that we do. And I pray over the congregation as they go out, that they feel encouraged to get involved in some sort of ministry so that way we can be the hands and feet of you, God. We pray these things in your heavenly name. Amen.